Hi students, hope you're doing well, that you and your families are healthy and safe, and that you're following your classes as well as you can during these circumstances. So I'm just gonna talk briefly about Black Swan today. I've read all your posts and I think they're quite detailed and quite insightful. So I strongly recommend that all of you read through your classmates' posts. And even if you want to respond to an idea they've written that you find particularly compelling and you want to add to the discussion, you're welcome to do that. I think if this had been a strictly online course from the beginning of the semester, I would have asked you to do that. So post something of your own and respond to one of your classmates' posts as well, because it keeps the discussion going in a way that that's more similar to what we would have in a class discussion. So I think that I'm not going to add anything new to my brief talk right now. I think you've addressed most of the ideas in your posts already. So I'm just gonna try to summarize what most of you have said already, and in a way that's perhaps a bit more concise and structured. So have you noticed it's really the type of conflict that guides the plot here is person versus self. And particularly it emphasized the idea of the duality of humankind, the sort of light side and dark side, of course, the eponymous theme of films like Star Wars, etc. That is juxtaposed against the figures of the white and the black swan, and Nina eventually being able to perform both. But of course, this performance is also hinged on her own personal transformation and her journey, not only as a character, but as a human being, from the innocence of the white swan that she performs really well into the sort of more sinful or corrupted, but also more knowledgeable and self-aware persona of the black swan. Of course, so whenever you have such a stark binary between white and darkness, or between light and darkness, or sorry, white and black, there's a series of other binaries that are sort of developed from there. Not only the idea of good versus evil, but also that of innocence and corruption or sin. And in this particular film, also this idea of perfection, which Nina sort of embodies in her performances because she's such a precise, obsessive dancer, and that of loss of control that is more embodied by Lily, who also becomes somewhat Nina's alter ego. And Lily, as Thomas refers to, is more of a natural dancer. She's imprecise, he says, but effortless. And there's this idea, right, this duality between the perfection that dancing requires, especially ballet dancing, and a sort of natural ability that also is part of the performance as well. So there's this evolution, as some of you pointed out, in the character from the innocence of childhood, and that is, of course, represented in the mise en scène in Nina's living situation with her overbearing, controlling mother, but also her own, bedroom that is that of a child, and her transformation into a woman. And I think Simoy pointed out, right, that this is sort of made possible through her sexual awakening. But this transition, also womanhood, is one of knowledge and self-awareness of that complete duality of humankind that every person has the potential of embodying. So of course, Nina being so obsessed with her work, with the idea of perfection, which is not necessarily something that will help her in her performance, is a stigma of control. And she controls her body through her dieting, through her exercise, through her discipline, but also through her mother as well. And this discipline and control, of course, exerts tremendous pressure on Nina stress and exhaustion, which leads, of course, to her psychosis and the hallucinations she's having. And these hallucinations, of course, hinge upon her transformation into the Black Swan. And interesting, though, right? The drama or the tragedy of the Black Swan is not necessarily one, of course, where she dies, but one where the character is unable to embody the duality of humankind because of the sort of extremes of being and becoming that she goes through. She's either one or the other, and interestingly, right, she can be both at the same time, and becoming the other, the Black Swan, requires, of course, the death of the one, of the white swan. So, of course, this transformation, this character arc, is juxtaposed to the ballet as well, the Swan Lake. Nonetheless, the transformation of Nina happens quite early. At the beginning, it is not metaphorical, but increasingly we see that it's a metaphor. And it begins in one of the first scenes of the movie when Nina and her mother have breakfast. And of course, we're sort of introduced to that discipline, control that, you know, Nina exercises on herself and the mother exercises on herself through their scratches in her back. And the scratches in her back is, of course, sort of this nervous tic, symptom of her anxiety. And it becomes also the means through which she transforms. Her wings start spreading from her back and transforms into the Black Swan. There's a number of scenes, not only in the scratching, and of course the mother wants to control the scratching because it's an obsessive compulsion, but also in the ways in which the transformation occurs in her skin. There's these scenes where, when she's in a room and she's hallucinating, that there is the sort of her skin starts mutating and scaling, and there's this particular scene where that it's subtle, but it's there. And of course, eventually, where her skin develops into this chicken skin, and she starts picking feathers out of her back and out of her arms and other parts of her body as well. There's also the motif of a doppelganger, an evil twin, and there's the Lily alter ego, and on top of that is also the idea of the doppelganger, the double or the evil twin. And that begins quite early in the film as well. When she exits the subway at night, she sees herself walking towards her, or thinks she sees herself walking towards her, but it's the sort of her opposite, her dark or evil twin. The evil twin reappears in the bedroom. She tries to suffocate her in the dressing room during the performance as well. So there's Lily as the alter ego, and then there's a doppelganger. And a doppelganger, the evil twin, and Lily as the alter ego are juxtaposed in the film towards the climax when she becomes the Black Swan. There's, of course, early on in the apartment, multiple mirrors. So not only in her bedroom, but also when she enters the apartment in the hallway, she's always seen as a double through the mirrors that are carefully put in the mise en scène. There's also, of course, the idea that for one to become woman, one needs to awaken sexually. And so, of course, there's the entire scene where she touches herself. And of course, the entire scene where she imagines or fantasizes of having sex with Lily. And that's part of trying for her to become her, right? The idea. And then when she, of course, fantasizes about having sex with Lily, she sees herself in Lily. So again, this juxtaposition of the alter ego and the doppelganger. So this transformation is somewhat of a metamorphosis. And of course, this idea of metamorphosis reverberated by her hallucinations is something that we're going to talk about next week when we're going to discuss the metamorphosis. And I'm going to post tomorrow an introductory lecture to Kafka and the Metamorphosis, and I'll explain what the assignment will be for next week in terms of your reading. It's a short novella. It should be a couple of hours max, and now that you're inside, and I'm sure you're spending most of your time inside, it's actually a pretty interesting little story. So I'll post on that. If you have any more comments about Black Swan, you can add another post in the discussion board or respond to one of your classmates. I invite you to do that. I think that most of your responses were really, really insightful. Okay?